Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN 1363, and this is a 2016 223, which is Caviar with LA20 black interior. So black on black. It is for sale with 9,500-ish miles. So 4-digit mileage in Rocklin, California at Carvana at their wholesale dealer auction. And so that means you will probably be seeing this for sale retail in the coming weeks or coming months, but I wanted to go ahead and give you the info now for when it does pop up. And so it's going to run here in a couple days, and I am going to talk about it right here about the final sales price. This car had 171 bids on it, and it sold for $69,800. So somebody is in this car almost $72,000 plus shipping. Production statistics: 448 out of the 2,348 cars for the US 49 were Caviar. That's like 20%. 225 had LA20 black interior. That is the most common color combo. So 9.58% of all of the US 49 production was this color combo. That is a 2 or 3 out of 10. It's pretty common. 2016, 284 out of the 1,418 cars were Caviar. 148 had LA20 black interior. So this car at its rarest is one of 148, very common in the GSF world. Another thing to note on this car, in the last 8.5 years, this car's only been driven about 2,500 miles. So in the last 5 years, this car's only been driven about 700 miles. So it hasn't been driven a lot. It's been sitting a lot. Hopefully, no fuel went bad, anything like that. That would be something to keep an eye on. Carfax, Epic VIN, and Auto Check. So Carfax shows us as a 3-owner, no accident car, with Lexus being the original owner. It was disclosed as a manufactured vehicle, and the window sticker you can see right here, it was delivered to TMS Lexus Vehicles. TMS is Toyota's marketing arm, and so that typically would be a driving school car, a tech school car. It could be for a car show, auto show, things like that. So I don't think it could have been a press car, but I don't think this was a press car, and I don't think this was a driving school car unless it was like for the autocross, because typically you would see lots of tires, brakes, interior wear fixes, things like that, and I don't see that on this car. So I don't think this was a driving school car, but it's always a possibility that it was. So Lexus had it for about 2 years and 7,700 miles, and that's pretty typical for Lexus ownership. The auto show cars they kept for just a few months, and then they sold them on with 50 or 100 miles. And this could have been a Toyota corporate lease program vehicle, so it's an employee at Lexus or Toyota that owned it, and so that could have been what it was as well. But it was disclosed as a manufactured vehicle, and when the corporate employee vehicle purchase program, when they purchased these cars or leased these cars, they were ordered from the factory, delivered to Toyota, to Lexus, and they were disclosed therefore as a manufactured vehicle. So you saw a lot of that as well. Epic VIN shows this as a 3-owner, no accident car, and AutoCheck shows this as a 2-owner, no accident car, but the Lexus ownership, it shows it all as pre-titling event. So it's tagged as 2 owners, but it shows 3 owners. So it is a 3-owner, no accident California car. Previous sales. As I said, Lexus was the original owner for the first 2 years, 7,700 miles. So after Lexus's ownership, it was turned in and put up for sale retail. May of 2018, 7,700 miles for $62,000 in California, and they dropped the price about 3 weeks later to $57,000 at Lexus of Serramonte, and it was certified pre-owned, as I said. And then it looks like there is a private sale just a couple months ago, February 25th of 2026, with reported almost 9,800 miles. So that differs from where it is right now. There's a picture of the odometer at Carvana, and it shows about 9,500 miles. So maybe a clerical error, something like that, but that is probably, as it continues on, that's probably going to trigger a mileage discrepancy unless the first entry is more than 9,700 miles. So that would be something to watch out for on this car. But it looks like this person that had it in February of 2026 let Carvana buy it. So Carvana either had a strong offer or they just let it go. And now Carvana is selling it at their internal dealer auction, probably because they know this is a pretty clean example with low mileage, and so it makes more sense to them to probably sell it at auction where they're going to probably get more money for it. And so we'll talk about that here at the end of the video. So now into the photos. Typical wholesale auction, it hasn't been washed. It's pretty dusty. It's been sitting for a while, but it does look extremely clean if you look beyond that. And it looks like a car with under 10,000 miles should. The interior, everything looks phenomenal. I don't see any carbon fiber trim delamination, anything like that. The tires look old. The rear tires look like they're probably original. The front tires, we'll look in the service history, the front tires are 6 years old and they don't even have 1,000 miles on them. So you may have some flat spotting, dry rotting, things like that. But the rear tires definitely I would replace at a minimum because they're 10 years old. And they're both, front and rear are all Pilot Super Sports, which everybody's kind of moved on to the Pilot Sport 4S if you're gonna run Michelins on these cars. It looks like the brakes, the front brakes, the rotors have a little bit of lip on them already with not even 10,000 miles. So maybe it's had a lot of short trips, a lot of stop and go driving. You know, this car was in California, Southern California, so maybe it spent a lot of time in traffic. Plan on brakes and tires unless whoever buys this, before they put it up for sale, it gets new brakes and tires. So now into the service history. This car is pretty well dealer serviced, but it's also the last time it's been serviced was about 5 years ago, but not even 500 miles. So it hasn't been driven a lot. So you have to worry about things like rubber parts. Was it stored properly? Was it stored outside? You know, that kind of thing. But the rubber parts, the tires being old, I would definitely replace the tires. Early on, it doesn't have a lot of brakes and tires, so I would think that it probably wasn't a driving school car. May of 2018, 7,700 miles, certified pre-owned prep. They noted paint touch-ups, a wheel repair, interior repair, and dent removal. Pretty common for certified pre-owned prep, but the interior repair, you know, you saw that a lot on some of the driving school cars because there were so many people that were getting in and out of the cars, so it would wear down that bolster. But typically they would replace it. So I don't see that being done here. Just my 2 cents from my experience. July of 2020 at 8,900 miles, 2 front tires, and they note Pilot Super Sports being used. So the front tires have less than 1,000 miles, but they are also 6 years old. So if it just sat and didn't move, you're probably gonna have some flat spots or, you know, maybe even some dry rotting depending on how the car was stored. July of 2021, 9,052 miles, which was the last service. Brake fluid and TVD was serviced. The torque vectoring differential, the fluid was changed, and an oil change. Maybe do the transmission service and coolant. That's about it. But they also, on that service history, they noted that the front brakes had 7 millimeters, the rears had 8, the front tires had 9/32, and the rears had 5/32. So that kind of jives. It's gonna need tires pretty soon if they weren't already 10 years old. So what's not done? Rear tires, as I said, probably do the front tires too. They're 6 years old. The front rotors have a lip on them, and as I said, I would do the transmission service, I would do the coolant and the drive belt just out of age, kind of inspect the other rubber parts. So as far as the price goes, for the miles, this car could easily sell for 70, 75,000 plus in this market. This would be a great example to address anything that needs to be addressed and put it on Bring a Trailer. This would be a great place for a car like this because in reality, in the GSF world, we have not had a car like this go up on Bring a Trailer in a while. We had a 2020 a couple of years ago that sold for with fees $77,000 with 18,000 miles, and it was perfect. It was ultrasonic blue mica with a black interior, but that was top dollar at the time, and the market has only gone up since then. So this being kind of a plain spec though, it's black on black. It's not going to really excite a lot of people like an orange car or blue car or a yellow car, something like that. But there's still a buyer out here for an example like this because it is a fantastic example, but it's just an age thing now. So it's been sitting a lot, and that's what you run into when cars are 10 years old and they only have 9,500 miles on them. So what's not done? None of the service campaigns have been done on this car. So the KLG, the GPS location, the HVAC servo sweep, the ZLZ, the sticky dash, but that expired April 5th of 2026. So just recently. The low pressure fuel pump has not been reprogrammed, so you may hear a humming or buzzing in the back seat. The low pressure fuel pump recall has not been done, but the parts are not yet available. Inspect the valley plate. The 9,500 miles, it's heat cycles and time. So it's got the time part, but heat cycles, maybe it hasn't been driven a lot, so it doesn't sound like it has. Valley plate's probably okay right now. But just look at the other rubber parts, the belts, the hoses, things like that. It's been doing a lot of sitting. Does it have old fuel in it? Does it run right? Does it stumble a little bit? It needs to be driven. So that brings me to would I buy this car? I think if it were priced right and the service was brought up to date, tires, brakes, things like that probably need to be done just out of age, not the brakes out of age, but I think that this car is going to probably bring all the money. So when this goes up for sale, I definitely would not be surprised if the first number is a 7 or higher than that. But I really think that honestly, this is a good candidate for Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, something like that, because we haven't had one in the GSF community. We haven't had a car like this go up for sale yet. And so generally what you see on Cars and Bids or elsewhere, they have had an accident, there's some damage, there's some lack of maintenance, or something like that. This car doesn't really have any of that, other than it just needs brakes and tires and do some fluids, and it's ready to go. So we'll see where it is, but stay tuned. I'm going to talk about the final sales price here right at the end. Well, so $1,363, June 15th, 2026. This car had 171 bids on it, and it sold for $69,800. So somebody is in this car almost $72,000 plus shipping. And so I think, my original thought was this car is going to have a 7 in its price when it goes up for sale. It may even have an 8, as deep as they are into it. There's probably a dozen or so cars left right now for GSFs in the US that have 4-digit mileage like this car. So I think that they probably paid all the money, but again, the market keeps creeping up on these cars. This would not be a bad example for Bring a Trailer if it was brought up to snuff where it needed absolutely nothing. So I think that, it definitely has the makings. It's definitely a low mile, clean example. And so I think that there will be a buyer for this. That dealer up in Washington State seems to be buying all these, and he's paying a premium price, but they're selling. And so that's also telling you that these cars are selling at these prices. And so that's, I'm not surprised to see it. I'm glad to see it, as somebody who owns 2 of them. But also it's kind of sucks because it's pricing out the people that were hanging on for hoping for a deal, hoping these things would go down a little bit. And that's just not going to happen right now. The market is red hot. And so this is evidence yet again. So that's what I've got for you guys. VIN 1363. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.